Welcome to Real World Real Estate, where we will explore, examine, and explain the real process of buying or selling real estate. Here is your host, Stephen Clyde.
Hello, everybody. Stephen Clyde here, your host of Real World Real Estate. I'm with RE/MAX Preferred and RE/MAX at Cherry Hill. It's nice to speak to everyone again. So today we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to talk about some of the top real estate myths that are out there, the actual top 10. And then we're going to go into the market conditions right now from a seller standpoint. And we're going to touch base on some of the crazy things, our tales from the field, things that we see out there and things that you literally could not make up. As we go over the tales from the field, we'll post some pictures to our Instagram site at Team Clyde Realtors on Instagram, so you'll be able to check out those photographs. But I wanted to go into the real estate myths, debunk them a little bit, cover some of the top ones that we hear out there all the time, and, just review these, give the truth on them, even as it doesn't necessarily correspond with what's posted out there from a marketing standpoint. We're going to cover it from the real world standpoint, how we see these things and how we adjust them. A myth can be defined as any invented story, idea, or concept. Just because you read something on the internet doesn't mean it's true. The same thing can be said about something you may have heard from a coworker, a family member, a cousin, anybody that discussed their real estate transaction with you. My wife always uses the analysis. Real estate stories are like labor stories. Now, I have no real point of reference on that, but I'm going to take her at her word. Basically, that everything is just completely blown out of proportion. One that I hear all the time, especially from buyers, is that settlement's going to take forever. When I talk about New Jersey and South Jersey, we go to a settlement table. All the parties sit there. Obviously, it's a little different right now during COVID-19. We're spreading them out a little bit, but it doesn't take all day. It doesn't even take hours. If everyone did their job properly and, got all their paperwork done in advance, from the professional standpoint, the attorneys, the realtors and everything, by the time we sit down at the settlement table, we should start and finish in 45 minutes, really. I've done it in 30 and 35. It all depends on how many questions the buyer has as we're going through the package with the lender or the attorney or the title clerk. But less than an hour, absolutely. Now, sometimes the final culmination of the deal takes a little bit longer because we're waiting for a wire to come in or something like that. But once we get all the paperwork and everything done from the buyers and seller standpoint, you guys can leave and then we're dispersed the checks when everything's done. But the actual process, if done properly, should not take any more than 45 minutes. Another thing I want to touch base on is all real estate agents are the same. So one of the most common real estate myths is that all real estate agents are the same. Myth can lead buyers and sellers to making mistakes when they're selecting the real estate agents to represent their interest. Every real estate agent has a different skill set, a different experience level, different traits, different things that they're really good at compared to their peers. For example, real estate agents who have been selling real estate for 2 years and primarily work as buyer's agents is not going to have the same skill set as a real estate agent who's been doing this for 20 years and primarily is a listing agent. There's a significant difference between real estate agents who work with sellers and real estate agents who primarily work with buyers. And the saying that all men are created equal, or all men and women are created equal, as we should say today, is complete opposite when it comes to real estate agents, right? It does come down to experience. It does come down to what you specialize in and how you work. The buyer's agents that work for me right now, they rely on my experience and everything that we're doing to support them, right? They're worrying about my 1,000 transactions and that experience of those transactions and what we've been through to help them get to the table. An agent that's done 8 transactions just unfortunately doesn't have the experience yet as an agent that's done 800 transactions. This is just a fact of life. It's not saying anything negative about the newer agent with less transactions. They just don't have the experience. They haven't seen as much as the other agent. And the agent that has seen more transactions has come across more problems, has been exposed to and developed more solutions, so they can make the process considerably smoother and streamline these issues without being flustered, so to speak. So when you're selecting that agent, I highly recommend that you look for an experienced agent, or if you're working with a newer agent, make sure they're working on an experienced team and that you're getting the benefits of that experience. It's a very, very, very complicated transaction. It's a very large transaction, obviously. So the more experience you can bring to the table on it, the better. I think another one, and this is one we come across every day, every deal we come across this one. When selling a home, price it to leave room for negotiations. This one couldn't be further from the truth. You need to price your home to the market, not price your home to negotiate. Right? Correctly pricing your home is one of the top 3 important things when selling a home. Incorrectly pricing the home can be the kiss of death. This is probably the biggest real estate mistake that's made commonly. And one of these common mistakes is, I'm going to build a little room in this so I can take an offer from a buyer and have room to negotiate. Well, look, if the comps and the market dictate that your home is worth $299,000, then that's where we should price it, not at $350 because you're anticipating an offer and want to be able to negotiate, or $325. That's going to restrict how many people look at your house, because now your house looks overpriced on the market. So less people are going to show up. You're going to start doing price reductions. Your house is going to get a little stale, and it's actually going to cost you money than if you would have priced it correctly to begin with. Pricing a home higher so that there is room for negotiations with a potential buyer. The real estate myth, if believed by a seller, can lead to tons of frustration and potentially to a home that sits on the market for a long time. If you're selling your home, you need to understand who today's buyers are and what they're all about. The internet has greatly impacted the real estate industry. Buyers are more savvy and educated than ever before due to the amount of information that's available on the internet. Listen, it used to be that only the real estate agents saw your price reduction or saw the fact that you listed it 3 months ago at a higher price and now you're coming back to the market. Or for that matter, could quickly obtain the information as to when you bought it and how much you paid for it. I mean, that latter information was always available to buyers through the public records item of things, but it wasn't very, very easy to obtain. It was rather cumbersome to obtain. But now it's right on their phone. It's in their hand. When they open up your listing online, they see everything, every price reduction, every time you've taken it off the market, put it on the market, how much you paid for it, when you bought it, and how much you paid for it. They have all the information right now. So you're not hiding anything from anybody. And the buyer's not going to waste their time looking at a home that's overpriced by thousands of dollars. So before you list your home $25,000 or more higher than the top agents suggest that you're interviewing, or that the comps suggest, so that you leave room for negotiations, you need to understand that most buyers will know it's overpriced, and they're most likely going to pass on even looking at your home. And I've had sellers say to me, well, they can always come in and make an offer. Well, if you're overpriced, they're not even going to bother. They're just going to move right on. And you're done then. If they're walking past your house and not looking at it, you're not getting a sale. You're not even getting a conversation. You're not going to start the negotiations. Be very selective on who you pick as your agent. And if you're selling your home, don't overprice it to build room in for negotiation. That is one of the worst things you could possibly do. Another one, and we come across this a lot with buyers on the internet, especially that are coming through like Realtor.com or Zillow or, those types of sites, is for whatever reason they believe that you can get a better deal when buying a home directly through the listing agent. Now, you've heard us talk about this numerous times, and you heard me say it not too long ago. Buying or selling a home can be an extremely complicated process, especially for a first-time home buyer. And it's imperative that when buying a home, you have a great real estate agent representing your best interests. A common real estate myth, as I just mentioned, is when buying a home, using the listing agent will result in a better deal on the home. The thought process behind this myth is the listing agent will cut their commission percentage because they are receiving both sides of the transaction. Sounds like an ideal scenario for the buyer, right? Yeah, wrong. A, not very likely that agent's necessarily cutting their commission or reducing their commission. Or if they are, the seller is calculating that into their net. They're not necessarily passing it over to you. What a buyer may not understand is that the listing agent is also representing the seller at the same time, right? So when this process occurs, and listen, we represent both sides a lot, not that we're trying to get anyone a better deal or we're trying to do any, finagle those things, or there's a huge commission reduction, so that's being passed on to the buyer or the seller, however that may work out. We list a lot of properties, so we do get calls directly from buyers off of our signs, our social media posts, internet sites, looking to see our listings. So they do contact us directly. But keep in mind, we're serving two masters when we do that. And it takes a very, very high skill set and a lot of experience to be able to put up a Chinese wall and represent both parties equally and fairly. You have to be neutral in the process now, right? My loyalties can't be to the buyer and not to the seller, nor can they be to the seller and not to the buyer. I have to be loyal to both parties simultaneously. It's a very, very tricky path to walk when you're representing both parties. You have to have good systems in place. You have to know exactly what you're doing, and you have to understand how to give neutral advice to both sides so you don't favor one side over the other. I mean, we do it as a neutral standpoint where I can't tell you what to offer anymore, and I can't, as a buyer, and I can't tell a seller what to counter anymore, right? We have to give, like I said, neutral guidance and advice. Some agents aren't very, very good at it. Some agents don't do it because it's in their client's best interest, so to speak. Some agents do it because it's in their best interest. This isn't a benefit to the buyer or the seller. It's a benefit to them. I've come across a few agents that try to capture this business aggressively right now, where they're offer $1 commission to a buyer's agent for the first 10 days that a property's on the market, so that all the leads and all the processing goes to them and doesn't come to the buyer's agents out there. Well, they're not working in their seller's best interest. They're definitely not working in the buyer's best interest. They're working in their best interest. And a really good real estate agent, no matter what, will put their client's interests and needs ahead of theirs at all times. But just like any other profession, there's good and there's bad and there's ugly. This applies to doctors, lawyers, police officers, dentists, accountants, real estate agents, used car salesmen. This is something to consider moving forward. So the other downside as a buyer to always trying to go through the listing agent is you don't develop a rapport. If there's 6 houses you want to see and you call 6 individual listing agents, no one's developing a rapport with you. No one's getting an understanding as to what you're looking for. No one's helping you through the process at that point. You're just walking in, looking at a house, moving on, and calling to the next listing agent. If you engage with a really good agent to represent you as a buyer, they're going to get an understanding and a feeling for what you're looking for, what your wishes, wants, and needs are. And they'll be able to guide you to additional homes that maybe you're not picking up online. All right. Sometimes we're detached from it a little bit, which is what you want from a professional. We're not emotionally involved in the process. So we're finding things and saying, hey, look, I know you were definitely looking in Haddon Heights for this property, but if we slid over one town and, kept your walkability and everything you love about this town the same, you can get this much more house for your money, or you can upgrade your school system, or you can get closer to the train station. We can guide you there. We've got a better feel for the market. So you're better off developing that relationship and being candid and honest with a buyer's agent once you engage them and secure them as your representative. And the more information you give them and the more you tell them how much you like or dislike a house and what you hate and what you love, the easier it is for them to start narrowing down your search, and then they can get it down to a pinpoint. We just went through it with a client where, we showed them, I guess, 6 houses. Got great feedback from both of them. Fiance's getting ready to marry, young couple. What she was looking for was, an amazing kitchen, and he was looking for privacy and space. Well, what they were looking for online on the properties they were selecting, they hit some of these criteria, but they weren't necessarily in the best areas. They weren't necessarily in really good school systems for the next step down the line when they start having children. And they didn't fit the rest of their criteria: commuting time to work, bedroom sizes, garage, that type of thing. So she was picking based off of the kitchen. He was picking based off of location, and the two sides weren't really meeting. Well, as their buyer's agent, I was able to say, look, you've skipped over this house 3 times. I think we should take 20 minutes and go take a look at it. It meets both of your criteria. So it did hit 9 out of 10 on their wish list. The one that it didn't really hit is the bathroom needs a little bit of updating, but it gave him his privacy and his space, gave him his parking area. It gave him just about everything they wanted, except for the bathroom needed to be updated. So we were able to secure that house for them, put a really good deal together for them that the buyer's happy with and the seller's happy. But that's because we learned what they were looking for, and we learned the details of what they were looking for and what their motivations were in those items. So working with a buyer's agent is the most important thing I think you can do as a buyer. Another really big myth, and we come across this with a lot of buyers sometimes, and they fight this one kicking and screaming, that they want to find their perfect house before they go get their mortgage pre-approval. And it's probably one of the hardest myths to break for real estate agents when it relates to financing. A lot of home buyers believe that getting pre-approved doesn't need to take place until they find their perfect home. And this is a huge mistake. Huge. You may want to wait because you don't want your credit run or you're not sure yet. But getting your pre-approval in advance before you start the search process is probably the best thing you could possibly do as a buyer. One, it lets you know exactly what price point you can buy in. You may be comfortable at $250,000 purchase price, but the bank may be comfortable at $200,000. And the difference between a $200,000 home and a $250,000 home, they're worlds apart. You may be comfortable at $200,000 and the bank may come back to you and tell you you're good to $300,000. Just because you're approved for a number doesn't mean that's what you need to spend, but it lets you know where you can work in, right? And where you can start looking. Now we know where we narrow that search criteria down as far as budget's concerned. And house hunting can be time consuming. It's exciting and it's frustrating and a lot of other things and a lot of other emotions go into it. But getting involved in a full-out search for the perfect home, eliminate the chance of any disappointment down the road by getting a pre-approval from your lender in advance. Anybody would be devastated if you find your dream home, if you come across the home you love, and you're dying to write an offer. And then when you talk to the lender to get that pre-qual because you waited till you found the perfect home, and you find out you don't qualify for that house. Their taxes are too high, or the price point is beyond your reach due to your debt to income ratio. There's nothing worse than that. Finding your dream home or what you thought was your dream home and then finding out you can't purchase it. And in today's market, with as hot as it is and the competition of buyers, you don't want a pre-qual. You literally need a pre-approval in hand, ready to go. We can't even submit the offer. And if you're going to wait a day, maybe a day and a half, and if it's a Friday over the weekend, maybe you wait till Monday to get your pre-approval in hand, most likely in this market with all the multiple offer scenarios that's out there, that seller's already selected a buyer and you're out. Need to have that pre-approval in hand and done before we start searching. All right. So that is a crucial myth, right? You must get that up front. You can't wait till you find your dream home to get your pre-approval in hand. Another one that I love, and we go over this with sellers a lot. So I'm going to blow up a myth, and a lot of agents are going to hate me for this one, but open houses sell houses. Well, look, I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't $1 Million Listing New York or $1 Million Listing LA on Bravo, right? In my market, at least, we don't throw these big elaborate parties, and I don't think any market really does. They look great on TV. And as a listing agent, I would probably throw those parties if the producers of Bravo were paying for all of that. The fact is that according to the National Association of Realtors, only 2% of homes are sold as a result of an open house. Can sales result from an open house? Yes. Is it likely? No. Does it happen to us on occasion? Absolutely. But you're probably asking yourself, then why are there so many open houses out there? Why would an agent push for open houses with sellers, spend so much money advertising and marketing an open house and printing the flyers, and set aside 2 to 3 hours of their time on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon if we're talking about 2% of homes are sold as a result of an open house? Well, the open house is not for the benefit of the seller. The open house is not for the benefit of the buyers. The open house really isn't meant to sell the house. When we look at the stats and it's 2%, well, obviously it's a bad marketing play if that's how we're going to sell the house, is through an open house. Primary reason why a real estate agent would swear by an open house is because they see them as an opportunity to pick up new clients. It's possible that a buyer that walks through an open house and does not have a real estate agent they're working with, this is an opportunity for the agent, right? From a buyer's agent standpoint, open houses are great because you sit there for 2 to 3 hours and all these buyers come to you. You gather their information, you start to follow up on them, and you're hoping that you're going to convert one of those into your client and close them and get a commission. As a listing agent side, listing agents are looking at open houses because they know the stats that within the next 120 days, 3 additional homes on that street or in that neighborhood are going to be listed for sale after this home is listed for sale. We also know that, what we call newsy neighbors are going to come through the open house. A good agent understands that those neighbors are actually interviewing you, even if you don't realize you're being interviewed, and they're looking to see what you're doing to market that home because they're getting ready to put their home up. They're one of those homes that are going to hit in the next 4 months. So listing agents are doing it to get new listings. Buyer's agents are doing the open house to get new buyers. And the likelihood that a house will sell through the open house is slim to none. I would not place my bet on 2% outcome, right? That's not really good. The other side to it is, you're allowing, if you're a seller, the big negative that I always point out is we're letting complete strangers that we don't even know are qualified, that aren't working with anyone, that we can't control, just walk through the house, right? We live in the day and age, unfortunately, of, scams are everywhere. And there's so many, lack of a better term, scam artists out there that are looking for a great ploy. So scoping out an open house is pretty good for those people, right? They get to walk through and see everything that's in there. I don't like it from a security standpoint. I don't like it from my buyer's agents from a security standpoint because they're alone with random strangers coming through a house. I don't like it from my seller's standpoint. And, I just don't think it's a very good investment of anybody's time or money. All right. So from a seller, I know tradition and a lot of agents out there push for open houses, but you should push back a little bit, right? This isn't what's going to sell your house. Pricing it right, a good marketing strategy, great photographs, great video, professional photographers. Those are the things that are going to sell your house. Not 3 hours on a Sunday with a bunch of signs and balloons out there. That's going to help your agent, not you. For sale by owners. Well, this is for all you people out there that are looking to sell. Obviously, a lot of people do this. They're successful with it. But, in my experience, the main reason sellers believe that selling their home for sale by owner is a good idea, it's because they're going to save a lot of money. And this is a common real estate myth. Many sellers who attempt to sell their home for sale by owner believe that selling the home is easy. Well, I'll concede that point. Finding a buyer for a listing is probably the easiest part of what we do. Getting from the contract to the settlement table is where the experience and the skill and the knowledge come into play. So it would be great if selling homes was as simple as putting up a for sale sign in the front yard, throw the house on the internet, and just let it sell. But this isn't Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. If you put up the sign, the offers will come flowing. That's not necessarily the case. And for sale by owners often end up losing money by not hiring a professional agent. And this is really due to several different reasons. Did they overprice their home and it didn't sell for 6 months? Was the transaction mishandled, ending up in a buyer being declined after 3 months under contract? Did the for sale by owner person not know to negotiate the best price and terms for their home? This is a huge transaction. It's incredibly complicated. Those 30 to 45 days from contract to settlement, there's 1,000,001 things going on. And if you're trying to do your full-time job and the job of a listing agent simultaneously, the chance that you're going to miss one of those items and ruin and screw up your entire sale is highly likely. The other side to it is, the seller thinks they're saving money and the buyer wants to save money too. So the offers are different. The buyer knows you're not paying a commission, so they're deducting that from their offers to begin with. So take a look at it and keep in mind 84 to 85% of all buyers are dealing with an agent. So the likelihood that an agent's going to bring you the buyer and you're still going to pay a commission anyway, it's highly likely. It's highly likely. There's another myth out there. I don't come across this that much, but I figured we'd cover it real quick, is that real estate agents can only show their own company's listings, right? And once in a great while, I get a buyer or somebody that'll ask this question, and they'll say that, this house on such and such street is listed by XYZ Real Estate Group. Can you show me that since it's not RE/MAX? Well, real estate agents, especially in the state of New Jersey, I can't speak to every state, but I think it's pretty common across the board. Once we belong to our local boards in the MLS, we have access to everything that is for sale and listed for sale. So the myth that we can only show our own company's listings couldn't be more false. We see every home that's for sale. We're cooperating with each other all the time. We work together. So no, we can list every home that's for sale. From a seller standpoint, you don't have to prepare your home to go up on the market. This one gets further and further from the truth every single day. Getting your house ready could cost money, could cost substantial money, but it's going to make you more money in the long run, either in selling the home faster than if we did nothing and securing a higher sales price than if you did nothing. But in the day and age of the internet, video, professional photographers, HGTV, design to sell, Property Brothers, everything else, the public is conditioned as to what a house is supposed to look like when it comes on the market. And you need to get yourself as close to that as humanly possible. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you come out and spend tens of thousands of dollars, but you definitely have to sit down with your listing agent and walk through the house and go over everything, touching up paint, putting in brighter light bulbs, decluttering, thinning out closets, putting things away, organizing things so they look right. Making your home ready to sell is like going out for an interview and not bothering to take a shower or get out of your pajamas if you don't do it, right? Getting your house ready to sell is washing and doing your hair, shaving, putting on a freshly pressed suit or outfit, stepping out of your house to go on an interview, putting your best foot forward. Well, the same thing applies for your house because buyers are basically interviewing your house when they come through to see it. So if it's dirty and messy, that's the impression you're leaving. If it's cluttered, well, guess what? You're telling buyers you have no storage. If it's dark because you put in a lower wattage light bulb than the light can handle because you're trying to save on electricity, well, guess what? Buyer thinks your house is dark. If the walls are all scuffed up and dinged, buyers are looking at going, there's a lot of maintenance that has to be done to this house. There's a lot of work I need to be done. Yes, a gallon of paint is only $35, but we refer to a gallon of paint as cash in a can. So you absolutely have to prep and prepare your house to go to the market. Sometimes this will take a couple days. Sometimes it takes a few weeks. I've actually had it drag out for 2 months. But we don't want to come on the market until your house is perfect as we can get it, right? So yes, make sure you prep that house. Make sure it's ready to sell. Some of our new myths that we're dealing with as we're in our new abnormal, we're in COVID-19. And I don't know where people are getting this one from, but it's out there, that the market is soft right now. Well, let me tell you, buyer demand is the highest I've ever seen in almost 20 years. I thought 05, 06, and 07 were high demand, low inventory issues, but right now, buyer demand is through the roof. It's driving the market insane. We're showing up for showings at scheduled times, and we're literally having to get in line with our masks on, social distancing from the other buyers and their agents, and wait in line like we're at Disney World to get through this house. Offers are coming in fast and furious, and they're aggressive and they're strong. So the market is strong. Buyers are not sitting on the sideline and being dormant because of lockdown restrictions, because of COVID-19. They're out there and they're aggressive and they're being strong. So, keep that in mind. Inventories do, remain very, very low. We've got a glut of home buyers coming in. The number of homes for sale to meet this pent-up demand is at an all-time low. There was insufficient supply last year. This year, during the pandemic, the shortage has intensified even more. According to Realtor.com's market outlook, housing inventory in June was down 27% across the nation. I'm going to tell you right now, in South Jersey, our inventory was down over 64%. Some reasons for this shortage of available homes have little to do with the coronavirus issue. The number of homes for sale is at a generational low because people are living in their homes longer than they used to. Data shows that Americans are spending an average of 13 years in their home before moving. Well, that used to be 7, so that's doubled. So we have less people selling. They're staying there twice as long. It's also a result of fewer distressed properties on the marketplace, especially here in New Jersey. We were working through a foreclosure and short sale glut of inventory leading into the pandemic. Well, that's all gone now. And, due to the stimulus support and mortgage forbearance and some generous unemployment benefits, that distressed properties aren't there, right? People are staying and holding on. There was another myth out there, and this was, actually started by so-called experts. We debunked them earlier, but Susie Orman, even Mark Cuban, they told us prices were going to plummet, houses were going to fall into foreclosure immediately, and, the value of homes were going to drop by 50%. Well, they couldn't have been more wrong if they tried. Home prices are up. With demand for homes up, inventory's down, the conditions are perfect for home sellers to get high prices. Many sellers are getting top dollar in their current market. According to the National Association of Realtors, home prices increased in most markets during the first quarter of 2020. So that's during the pandemic by 7.7%. So markets, prices are still moving up. I looked at a snapshot earlier this morning, and year over year, median prices in South Jersey, so Mercer, Ocean, Burlington, Camden, Gloucester, Cumberland, and Salem counties, are up almost 10%. It's really amazing. So we had a median home price, July of 2019, of $219,000. Right now, we have a median sold home price of $239,000. So it's a $20,000 increase on a $219,000 median sales price. So again, they couldn't be more wrong. And that's been steadily increasing, from March, it was at it was $209,013. Then it went to 220, then 226. Then it was 229. Now we're at 239. It's steadily climbing, right? The inventory is extremely low. So it's a great time to be a seller. You really, really got to be careful if you're a buyer. Make sure you don't get caught up in the insanity and overpay. Make sure you're getting good guidance and advice from your agent, because sometimes the best deal you make is no deal. Another factor that's driving that buyer activity and that low inventory are mortgage interest rates. The pandemic started, except for a 10-day period, right at the beginning where interest rates spiked up for a few days. They've been at historical lows. They've been at the lowest level I've seen in my lifetime, and definitely in my career. They've ticked up a little bit in the last week or so as the market's adjusting a little bit and the treasury market's adjusting, but they're still at all-time lows. I mean, we're right around 3%. In some cases, we're under. I know I had clients last week that had mortgages that were locked in at 2.75%, 2.65%, 2.9%. I actually just heard in New Jersey, we have a program for our full-time police and fire professionals that are actively paying into the pension system. We call it Police and Fire Mortgage. It's a program put out by the state to help our first responders there. And the 30-year fixed rate mortgage for a New Jersey police or fireman is at 1.57%. I was actually blown away. This crushed me. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. So these extremely low interest rates are adding to the lack of inventory, obviously, because we're bringing more buyers in as we go. The economy, right? We got to talk about the economy a little bit. The pandemic led to record high unemployment rates in March. These levels have fallen off, which could be a good sign. People are still eager and able to buy a home. They're back to work. They're not furloughed anymore. They may be working virtually. This one is probably what's really driving the market aggressively. Is home buyers' needs have changed. All right. People are working remotely. So we need home office space in some instances, because both people in a household are working remotely. We need 2 home office spaces. And now, depending on what school district you live in and what your school requirements are, you're going to need a room to homeschool, a room to do your conference calls and Zoom calls, a room for your partner or spouse or significant other to do the same, and then room for the kids. And then you also need a playroom. So we are seeing that the changes and requirements for a buyer are changing on a continual basis, and they need things now that they didn't need before. And they're foregoing things now that were, a top item 8-9 months ago, right? Because of virtual employment, we're not worrying about commute time anymore. We're not worrying about being near the rail station or the bus station or close to the highway. None of that's a factor anymore. Now they can base it off of where they want to live, schools, close to family. They're not worrying about the commute time anymore. But we do have to add more square footage and more rooms to the house. So this is also driving the market very strongly. The market is insane. So if you're a seller, be prepared to move quickly. Be prepared that within the first 72 hours that you're going to get multiple offers and they're going to be well above asking price. If you're a buyer, make sure you've got that mortgage pre-qual in place. Make sure you've got all your ducks in a row and you're ready to pull the trigger as well. Because this market is insane right now. And the better prepared you are from both sides of this coin, the smoother your transaction is going to be. So before we wrap up today, I wanted to touch base on a couple tales from the field, things we've seen out there and things you literally just cannot make up. I did take some pictures of one of these items, which I'll make sure that Gabby puts on the Instagram page. But we went and looked at a home It's a $300,000 home, so this isn't a, cheap, inexpensive proposition to purchase this home. He was listed by the listing agent as central air conditioning. And when we walked through, the first floor, we could definitely, there was air coming out of the vents and it was working. The house was cool and comfortable. They did tell us that the second floor didn't have central air, but they had window units up there. And here again, they were working and it was comfortable. When we went downstairs in the basement and we were looking around, I was kind of taken back because I couldn't find the blower and the air handler unit in the basement for the central air. Went back outside and looked around for the compressor and couldn't find that anywhere either. So we walked back down in the basement again, and there it was. We found the central air. And I'm using that term as loosely as I possibly can, because I think technically it is, but from an honor standpoint and an honesty standpoint, it definitely is not. So the seller, and I'm definitely giving them kudos and points for ingenuity, put a rather large full-size window air conditioning unit through the wall of the basement. Then they took ductwork and attached it to the window unit air conditioner to blow the air throughout the first floor. So they adapted a window unit air conditioning to deliver air to the rest of the house on the first floor, and then decided to call it central air. It's something I've never seen before in my life. I've never seen it before in my career. So I give points for ingenuity, but I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan here. Anytime you're going through a house, anytime you're looking at a home, take the Ronald Reagan approach that he took in the 80s with the USSR. Trust, but verify. So, trust the information on the MLS. Trust the information that the seller and the seller's agent gave you, but make sure you verify it. Because nothing would be worse than thinking this home had central air. Your agent or you just happen not notice the situation, which is completely possible. I'm just fairly a control freak and like to double check everything. And normally I go down to look at the air handler or the furnace just to see how old it is. And is my client going to have to make an investment in it? Not everybody does that, and that's fine. But nothing would be worse than to be under contract on your dream home. You got into a bidding war, but you won it because you stepped up to the plate and maxed out your pre-approval and made your best offer. And then after the home inspection, you realize that this doesn't have central air conditioning in the way that 99.999% of us would define central air conditioning. And that to install the central air conditioning, that you're looking at a, $10,000 to $15,000 expenditure. Now, if you've maxed out to make this purchase on your dream home, you may not have that additional money sitting around anymore. So keep that in mind. There's another one we saw. This is about a year ago, and I still can't figure this one out to save my life. We were actually doing the home inspection when we came across this one. And I'm going to try and describe this, but I'm sure everybody's familiar with, the shelving that Home Depot and Lowe's and all sells for, coat closets and linen closets and laundry rooms. It's that white wire shelving that you hang on the walls, and it's, all gridded and everything. Basically, it's the metal grids with the white plastic over top of it. So that was a shelf above the washer and dryer in the laundry room. And we actually couldn't test the dryer because the plug for the dryer was padlocked to the shelf. So you needed the key for the padlock in order to release the plug to plug in the dryer to do your laundry. To this day, I can't figure out why you would put a padlock on the plug for your washer and dryer in a 3,000 square foot, $300,000 plus home in a nice development. This wasn't like a shared environment. It wasn't a common area or anything like that. I mean, this was the mud room and the laundry room coming from the 2-car garage into the main house. And there it was. The dryer was fully secured, so no one could use it. This is the last thing my wife would do in my house, right? Is lock up the dryer so that I can never use it. That was really, really really strange. And a scary one that we had, and this was last summer. This was really scary. We had made an appointment to look at a house, and I was with my buyer, young son, and his mother. So I had grandmom, son, grandson, and we go to look at a house. Now, when we first walk into the living room, I notice what appears to be a toy gun laying on the couch. So I don't take much notice to it at first, but as I walk around the room, I do notice the gun again. And I notice that it doesn't appear to be a toy. It appears to be a real Glock 9mm sitting on the couch. Not sure if it was loaded. Not sure if it had a round in the barrel or not. And not 100% sure if it was real or fake, but it looked really real. I let the buyer and his mother know, especially so we could keep the grandson away from the weapon just in case. We walked upstairs and went into the master bedroom. On the nightstand was a .357 revolver. Because it was a revolver, we were able to glance at it, not touch it, and notice that it was fully loaded. Again, we kept the grandson away, and we went down in the kitchen, and there was another fully loaded revolver on the kitchen counter. I was absolutely appalled. I'm not against gun ownership. I'm actually for and okay with responsible gun ownership, but if you're an idiot, I don't think you should have a gun. I was obviously an idiot. We called the listing agent and informed him of the situation, and he told us this is an ongoing issue with the seller, that he feels that they're his guns and he can leave them wherever he wants, and we should just not touch them and stay away from them. Well, that's great for me, right? I'm a 50-year-old adult, right? But a young child doesn't have the same impulse control as an adult has. So what if what if I didn't notice that Glock or that those two revolvers? What if we didn't notice them? But I guarantee you a child will notice them. And if he picked up that gun thinking it was a toy gun, as I thought at first, there could have been a devastating situation for everyone involved. Ultimately, the other agents told us that this has happened at other showings, and the agent was smart enough to take the house off the market. But we see some crazy things when we're out there. We come across things that are just make you shake your head and go, what? What were you thinking? And some of them, like the air conditioning, you shake our head a little bit, but you got to give points for ingenuity and creativity. Still shake your hood. You know, sometimes the mystery never gets answered, like the dryer plug that was padlocked to a shelf. And sometimes you just look at the total absurd stupidity of people like the idiot with the guns. But it's crazy out there. It's fun and exciting. It makes us smile and laugh. So I hope discussing these myths and situations in the market conditions helped you a little bit. I hope hearing about some of our tales from the field made you smile and laugh or cringe. Check out the photographs at Team Clyde Realtors on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be back for our next podcast. We'll be interviewing Jim Reed and Sean Cloak from Green Tree Mortgage, and we're going to be discussing how to put together that pre-qual and pre-approval. And as we're heading into hurricane season, we're going to be sitting down with Randy Vonderton from Edgewood & Associates. He's a third-generation insurance broker. And we're going to go through homeowners insurance, flood insurance, specific riders, everything you need to know about your homeowners insurance, especially now because as we go into the fall in the Northeast, we're going to start getting storms, hurricanes, nor'easters as we go into winter. And, you know, we want to make sure we're covered for those trees and that flooding and anything else that can occur. So we'll talk to everybody again next week. Have a great week. Stay healthy. Practice your social distancing, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you would like any additional information, please contact us at Team Clyde Realtors on Instagram or Facebook, or you can send us an email at Steven@TeamClyde.